On April 17th, engineers monitoring satellites across the globe noticed something impossible. Hidden inside routine telemetry logs was a string of coordinates. The same coordinates, appearing on satellite after satellite. Nobody knew where they came from. Nobody could explain why they were there. And when investigators finally entered the coordinates into a map, the mystery only got worse. On April 17th, engineers monitoring satellites across the globe noticed something impossible. Hidden inside routine telemetry logs was a string of coordinates. The same coordinates, appearing on satellite after satellite. Nobody knew where they came from. Nobody could explain why they were there. And when investigators finally entered the coordinates into a map, the mystery only got worse. Because when investigators finally mapped the coordinates, they pointed to one of the most isolated places on Earth. The coordinates landed in the central Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles from major shipping routes, far from inhabited islands, far from anything that should attract attention. Satellite imagery showed nothing unusual. No vessels, no structures, no visible activity, just open ocean. Researchers initially concluded the mystery was finished. Perhaps a corrupted navigation reference, perhaps an accidental data insertion. But one analyst noticed something unusual. The coordinates were not perfectly fixed. Over time, they shifted slightly. Not much, only a fraction of a degree, yet enough to suggest movement. The location wasn't staying in one place. It appeared to be traveling, slowly, across the Pacific. And that raised a disturbing question. If the coordinates were tracking something, what exactly were they tracking? The answer seemed impossible, because whatever was moving wasn't on the surface. Researchers began comparing the coordinates against maritime traffic databases. No ships matched the path. No submarines were scheduled anywhere near the region. Weather buoys did not fit the movement pattern. Neither did drifting debris. The object appeared to travel in long, straight segments, then stop, then continue, almost as if it were following a route. Oceanographic records revealed another anomaly. Several deep water sensors positioned thousands of feet below the surface had recorded unexplained acoustic disturbances near the reported locations. Nothing dramatic, just brief pulses, short signals, difficult to classify. Most had been dismissed as equipment noise. Now investigators wondered whether they were connected. The deeper they looked, the more coincidences they found, and the harder it became to dismiss them. Then someone noticed a pattern hidden inside the timestamps, and suddenly the entire mystery changed. Every appearance of the coordinates followed the same schedule, 17 hours. Almost exactly. The coordinates would appear, disappear, then return 17 hours later. Again, and again, and again. No known satellite system operated this way. No scheduled transmission matched the timing. The pattern continued for years. Researchers built models, tested theories, examined hardware failures. Nothing fit. One group suggested a hidden military experiment. Another proposed software contamination spreading between systems. Neither explanation survived scrutiny. Yet the 17-hour cycle remained, steady, predictable, relentless. Then, after years of repeating without interruption, it suddenly stopped. And what happened next is the reason this story still circulates today. For the first time in years, the coordinates vanished completely. No new appearances, no transmissions, no trace. Researchers monitored the logs daily. Days became weeks. Still nothing. Many assumed the anomaly had finally ended. Then approximately 3 weeks later, a new satellite pass captured something unexpected. The location associated with the final coordinates showed a faint geometric shape visible beneath the water. It appeared only briefly. One image, then gone. Subsequent passes failed to capture it again. Some analysts dismissed it as image distortion. Others disagreed. The geometry looked deliberate, structured, almost engineered. Unfortunately, the evidence was too limited to reach any conclusion. The image remains controversial to this day, but the timing was difficult to ignore. Years of signals, a sudden stop, then a single unexplained appearance. Yet the strangest discovery was still waiting inside the archived records. Months after the investigation faded from public discussion, one researcher decided to review the earliest telemetry logs ever recovered. He wanted to know when the coordinates first appeared. What he found raised an unsettling possibility. The earliest examples were not the beginning. They were merely the oldest records that survived. Several references inside maintenance archives suggested the coordinates had been observed years earlier, possibly decades earlier, long before anyone started tracking them, long before digital archives became common. If true, the anomaly may have existed far longer than anyone realized. Perhaps the coordinates were meaningless. Perhaps they were the result of an unknown technical flaw. Or perhaps they represented something else entirely. Something moving beneath one of the most remote regions on Earth. Something quietly broadcasting its position, waiting for someone to notice. And if that's true, the most unsettling question isn't what the coordinates were. It's whether they're still out there, and whether one day they might start appearing again. Some signals are never meant to be found. Signal 2054,